Hello fellows, Herogon here. Pardon if my voice sounds a bit different. I've been going through some congestion. Hopefully that stops soon enough. Anyways, March 2024 was filled with quite some madness. From my birthday on March 1st to the Psychology of Play college class I've taken. I've now changed my schedule from bi-weekly to monthly from this point on, to account for new developments. I'm also beginning to implement a few more changes as time moves forward. College classes with Full Sail Online are more of a priority than the Funlogs at the moment, but it's not the end. I won't entirely stop the Funlog series, but do expect things to be taken at a slower pace thanks to the new monthly schedule. With that said, let's get into the Funlog. March 3rd covered reversals, which are otherwise known as counters or parries. This includes creating counters via stances and using commands to trigger reversals. The character.h file sees a new state added into the enum attack state, called counter stance. In the character.cpp, we have received damage function given a new if statement before everything else. If the attack state doesn't equal the attack state of counter stance, then we go through all the code logic that has been here before that week. After that, however, we use an else statement. In the else statement, we set the attack state to attack active. For the blueprint parts on March 3rd, we have a new data table row in one of our characters' command data. For the reversal, I use light punch as the input type with a required statement of blocking. Going to the anim BP, we have a few new states for our reversal, going off from the manual block. It will be a lot to take in, so bear with me here. Within the transition from manual block to reversal stance, we use a start transition event of start attack transition like all other attacks. However, reversal stance is not an attack. We also use an end transition event of enter reversal stance. Enter reversal stance sets our attack state to counter stance and our character state to no action. Then for the transition rule, we get the character commands array variable, setting the integer value of the get array to our command's corresponding row number. Note that integers start at 0 and data tables start at 1. Meaning I need to use the number 17 rather than 18. Then we break the command from our get array with the has used command boolean controlling if we can enter the transition. Going from reversal stance to reversal attack requires the attack state to be active. So if it isn't, we automatically go back to default once the reversal stance animation finishes. However, if we are an attack active, we start our attack transition and then go to reversal attack. Like many attack animations, we use started, active, and ended anim notifies. Once the reversal attack finishes, our transition rule from reversal attack back to idle has nothing besides the end attack transition, due to being automatic rule-based. As of recording this part on April 1st of 2024, I've gotten out of my congestion stuff and sickness. So, March 10th saw Shawnthebro covering improvements to the main menu. He refactored some blueprint nodes and widgets to optimize the menu navigation further. While there were hints back with some of the older tutorials, this is where we finally get around to some medium improvements. Instead of reusing the clear selection function so many times and those branches that check if the current selection doesn't equal a number, we use a for each loop. Move selection border is renamed determine button styles as we now add a new custom event called set selection. Set selection is like clear selection, but it's for showing our buttons rather than clearing them. The original function of move selection border, now called determine button styles, is very different as there is the for each loop using the array of buttons we have on hand. Then in loop body, we use a branch to determine if the array index is equal to the current P1 selection. If true, we set selection showing which button we're hovering over. If not, we clear that and move on to the next button. March 17th saw a new topic for Shawnthebro to cover: power-up states. Usually called install or buff states, we can now give our characters the ability to go into a powered-up state via command that requires a supermeter. In the character.h file, we add two new float variables as well as a boolean. The boolean is used for checking if the install is active or not. The two new float variables, total install duration and remaining install duration, are used for deciding the duration of the character's power-up state. In the character.cpp, we set these values with is install active being false and the total install duration being 15.0f. Meanwhile, remaining install duration will always be the total install duration, as it's used to help count down the time. Within the tick function, we have new lines of code for our install. If our install is active, we check if our remaining install duration is greater than 0.0f. If it is, then we decrease the remaining install duration by minus equals delta time, which runs every second or frame. Once the remaining install duration is at 0, we reset the install duration. We set is install active to false and remaining install duration back to total install duration. All of that will prepare our install to be used again once needed, be it special command input or needing enough meter. In the AnimBP, we create a new animation state in our state machine. This state will start from the manual block to the install animation state itself. Our transition from manual block to install uses the same get character commands array break command and has used command. We will need a new command leading us to the character's command data table. The activate ultimate form has an input type of light kick and a required state of blocking, which we use for our transition rule. In our transition from manual block to install, we also use a start transition event of start install transition. Start install transition calls start attack transition, then freezes the other actors and sets the HUD visibility to hidden. After our install animation is played, we call a start transition event known as end install transition and go back to idle. This time, end install transition calls our end attack transition rule, unfreezes other actors, sets our heads up display visibility back to visible, and is install active set to true. On March 24th, Shawnthebro covered improvements to power-up states, including adding damage and stun modifiers for the power-up state. In the character.h file, we add two new float variables, damage install modifier and hit stun install modifier. These are modifier values for when our character is in a power-up state. In the character.cpp, we set the default values for these modifiers. 2.5f for damage install modifier, and 2.0f for hit stun install modifier. Finally, in Hitbox Actor Blueprint, we've created two new functions that will determine if our damage and hit stun respectively need to be adjusted for our install state being active. If the install is active, we multiply our damage amount by the damage install modifier. The same goes for determine true hit stun, except it uses the hit stun frames as our amount, and we multiply it by our hit stun install modifier. If not, the default values of our damage and hit stun are used without any multiplication of any other variables in there. Finally, for March 31st, we have improvements for our sound effects. Now we can add them to each attack and play them when commands are triggered. In character.h, we have a new variable within our f command struct. This variable is of type SoundWave, which we name trigger sound. This will be where we store all sound effects we wish to play. In character.cpp, our start command function has new code for playing sound effects. If our current command from character commands has a sound within, we play it. However, we must also use an if statement that will cast our game instance. If the cast succeeds, we play our sound while also getting our game instance ref's sound effects volume variable. Otherwise, we do the same play sound 2D function, albeit without the game instance ref get. We have added a new variable to the blueprint struct f command details named trigger sound again. In the command data table, we can now put in whatever sounds we want into the trigger sound part of the data table details. However, in order to have our sounds play, we must also connect the f command detail of trigger sound to make our make command node in the event graph. We do this in our custom event of update character commands when we get our data table row. And that is pretty much it for March 31st part. And now for our results. Everything works okay, but due to me not entirely knowing how to screen record only the audio on the computer, you'll have to take my word for that part working. It was tough around March 3rd, but eventually figured things out after finding the main cause of issues when it came to the whole reversal stuff. For much of the other weeks after, they were a breeze, but the process of getting this video edited and prepared for the first or last Friday of the month, whichever comes first, was quite a trial. Next month, I may need to change around some of my workflow from recording the initial video up to the timing of everything. Bear with me as I take a slower release schedule of only monthly, since I'm going to be in college classes at Full Sail for a while. Credit again goes to Shawnthebro for all of his work, which I've enjoyed going through this past month. It has been a lovely backbone for the Funlog content, and I look forward to the possibility of becoming one of many Full Sail alumni, just as he has before me. With all that said, I hope you like this video, so comment below and subscribe if you have not already. It helps a small YouTuber out, especially in times like these. I've been Herogon, and you have been you. Thank you for tuning in. I will catch you all later. Goodbye, everyone.